Welcome to Mindfulness Manufacturing. My name is Trevor Blondeel. Spending 25 years in manufacturing, I discovered the real impact we have on turnover, communication, and the ability to manage change is how we show up. That's the essence of emotional intelligence. In each episode, we bring a guest or message to expand your skills, engage your people, and grow your organization. So let's jump in. So in our research, where we've been putting together some information for a book that we're coming out with, we're trying to figure out what's the main problems in manufacturing. And it just keeps coming back with retention and recruitment. Those are the foundations of the problem. So yes, we're looking into different areas, but let's just stick right down to the basics of retention. When I started professional speaking about 4 years ago, I took an amazing course through the Kentucky Pro Speaker Academy. So I'm the president now, and the past president was my moderator, Cara Silletto. And what fascinates me about Cara is that since 2012, she's been keynoting and studying and created an amazing training business on how to help companies retain their employees more. And she works with the manufacturers as well. So welcome, Cara.
I am so glad to be here.
Well, hey, and for our listeners, we have a chief retention officer for Magnet Culture. And so, Cara, you founded this, you've been growing it, and you've been doing a lot of research, and you've been working with a lot of companies. So I'm just excited to help us today, in our podcast time of how do we have a little more knowledge and maybe a little more strategies on how do we keep that retention?
Sounds great. Yep. I can't wait.
So I read your book, Staying Power, and I've been following you. And one of the things that I was just talking to a client the other day about, we were talking about retention. And I said, I like the analogy of a friend of mine that used that was, comparing, trees and houseplants. And there's sometimes you can bucket employees into two buckets. And I got that from you. So tell us more about that.
Absolutely. So I had an executive call me years ago, and he said, a friend told me to call you because you work on retention, but I'm not really sure I have a retention problem. I've got guys that have been with me 20 plus years. It's just these new hires that are the problem. And so he didn't think that A, retention was really the issue. It was just the new workforce, and B, that he was a part of the problem at all because he had been successful in past decades. And so that really made me realize there are two different groups in our workforce now. One we call the trees that are deep rooted in the organization. They tend to be able to weather the storm, and they aren't usually the flight risk. We don't worry about them leaving because they're not going anywhere, even if you wanted them to, Trevor. Okay.
Yes, I know those trees.
Right. And most of the trees are great and fabulous,
Yes.
but some of them maybe stay too long. And so we have that side of the workforce. And then this new workforce that we're hiring today is what we consider the houseplants. If you think about it, they prefer mobility over stability, right? The trees want that stability and the deep roots, where today's newer hires just want to be able to move. They want to change even from one planter to another. If they want to grow, they might need to be moved from one window to a different window in a different season, wherever the sun shines in your building.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are quite high maintenance. Let's be honest. Some employees need attention daily. They need a lot of sunshine and all the things. And then others are more like a cactus that you could leave that employee alone for a month, come back, and they'll be just fine. They're still there, thriving, right? So we've been teaching leaders these past several years to treat their employees as though one size no longer fits all. And as soon as you take that analogy into play, then you can think about, okay, well, then what's my care plan for these plants on my team? I've got some orchids, I've got some ferns, I've got some cacti or succulents, all these different things. And each one needs a different level of attention. So that's been very helpful for managers to kind of think differently about the workforce and not try to just treat everybody the same way and think that everyone's going to stay under that model.
Yeah, and I was just talking to a coaching session with the president of a manufacturing plant company, and we were talking about that whole aspect of people aren't looking for 20 years from now for a corner office, and
Right.
starting a company, and in 20 years I want to have that corner office. They're thinking about, what am I doing this weekend?
Yeah.
What's going on now? And so it's that whole shift of, we still have some people that are in the corner office or maybe kind of still going there, but those are some more of the trees. And then what are the adjustments that we're making for these house plants? Because I love the fact that, a house plant is not rooted, and that may just go to another office in another building. But that's probably someone you want to keep a relationship with and can be an advocate for your company when that, hey, I was taken really care of. Like, I grew really well as a plant in this building, and now I'm in this building and I'm still talking good about this other one. Is that where we're going with this, Cara?
Absolutely. And do not be fooled. Houseplants can live for decades. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that a house plant won't stay. The
Yeah.
key is, in order for it to stay in the same spot and to grow, you have to take that special care of it,
Hmm.
and make sure that it gets what it needs over time. And again, has the chance to grow in its spot or just shift around the organization instead of having to go to a completely different organization. But yes, even when people leave, we want to treat them with respect. And a lot of times today, I'm seeing especially hourly workers boomerang back to an organization that they left because they might say, well, the grass looks greener over there, or yeah, I can get a little bit more money over there. But then they realize that's not as great of a culture or not as great of a boss, and I want to come back. So you definitely don't want to burn those bridges with folks leaving and say, good riddance to you. We didn't want you anyway. Or the one that I hear so often is managers will say, well, he only stayed for a year. That was just a bad hire. We never should have hired him anyway. And that seems silly to me because
It
most of the
is.
clients I work with, that have especially hourly workers, frontline heathered, meaning they have to be at a job to do the job. They are, those folks have so many options of places to go to today that even keeping them 1 year, I would say high five, you kept him a whole
Yeah.
year. If
Yes.
now you're struggling with 30, 60, 90-day turnover, or, every company's a little bit different, but some of them have a lot of that new hire turnover. A lot of them are seeing the 1 to 2 or 3 year turnover when they used to be able to keep people 5+ years or even 10+ years. So yes, the tenure of folks coming in the door today is shrinking, but there are ways to extend that tenure and to keep people a bit longer and maybe even keep that house plant alive and happy for 10+ years if you take good care of them.
Yeah, just like we want our teammates to be engaged the day that they leave, they want us to engage with them until the day they leave, right?
Yes.
And our friend Tom Singer was on a previous guest, and his podcast was really about connection and just the fact of, hey, and if your employee's looking to work someplace else, collaborate with your other manufacturers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a spot for them, and they're going to be an advocate for you, and that could help with your recruitment later, because now it's all of a sudden like, yeah, I was only there for a year, but they treated me really well, and I just had to move for these reasons. Who knows? But I like the fact too that I'm still thinking about houseplants can stay, and we do have 30-year-old houseplants, and that's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
You don't have to be a tree. So what is the tips then for someone that's maybe had a lot of trees and they're just kind of getting used to house plants? Because what you're saying is very consistent with our research, which is for the manufacturing corporations, if you could run a plant and you could make money and in good safety and good quality, we'd kind of look away at a few things. Like, you could get away with, like, hey, this is my house and this is how we're going to run it. And if you don't like it, you can go work someplace else. So people are not getting promoted for that anymore. You used to be able to get away with it even 5 years ago. So what you're seeing, not just in manufacturing, but everywhere, is the same, where the leaders need to be more agile for each individual person. So where are you starting with that when you're helping others?
Absolutely. So our leadership kind of mantra right now is managers must guide and support their people. better than they ever have before. We've got to get better at that, because everyone is so busy now that they're shrinking the onboarding time and just throwing folks out to the floor a lot quicker. They'll cover the safety and compliance requirements, but then they say, oh, it's okay, you'll figure it out, or it's fine, you'll be fine. And so we need to provide more guidance as far as onboarding and mentoring to our folks that will not only help them do the job better, but also help keep them longer, because we are finding that today's newer hires are, I kind of hate to use this word, but it really describes it. They have less grit.
Yeah.
They do not have the thick skin that especially Gen Xers had from being the latchkey generation, figure it out, independent, stay outside till dark,
Yeah.
scrape your knees, it's fine, right? So we had the boomers and Xers that were raised to have a lot more grit, and the new workforce today coming in, just honestly, that our society has changed over the years. And I do a ton of generational work talking about these transitions and this evolution of our workforce. But the newer workers just simply don't have that thick skin, the grit. They struggle to make it through a difficult day. And if other people are hiring, they'll just leave during their break and not come back because
yeah, I hear that.
This is just too much for me. I can't handle it. And we say, oh, nobody wants to work and they're lazy. They have no commitment, when really they're just overwhelmed and they don't know how to cope with that. So
they don't want to work for you.
That's it. Yeah. Finish the sentence, right, Trevor? It's like, they don't want to work ... for you because you didn't onboard them properly. You threw them to the wolves, sink or swim. That's an old model, you guys, this whole sink or swim, figure it out type of model. The best employees or the best employers today are providing a realistic on-ramp. We've actually replaced the word onboarding with the word on-ramp to think about. We've all gotten on a highway and the on-ramp was way shorter than you thought it was going to be. And you've got semis flying past you.
Oh, that's another good one.
So that is terrifying, right? When you're on the road and you're trying to get your car up to speed and you literally can't because there's not enough road. There's not enough runway. So think about your new hire experience in that way. Are you giving a realistic and comfortable on-ramp and entrance ramp for people into your organization? Or are you terrifying them by just throwing them out on the floor too quickly?
So I can't just have 30, 60, 90s and just, we're good.
No.
We'll just see you in 30 days, Cara.
Stop it. No, in fact, we tell folks if they have any 30, 60, 90-day turnover, we say you need to do your check-ins after 30, 60, 90 hours on the job. You've got to check in with them within the first few shifts and certainly throughout their first few weeks to make sure that they feel confident and competent in the role. Have we given you the tools, the training, and the time to be successful in this role? Or otherwise, you're just pushing them away. I mean, if I get on a highway and I'm completely overwhelmed, what am I going to do? Take the next exit.
Yes.
I'm getting out of this place. I'm scared to death and I'm going to die, right? I can't handle that. So we've got to, we have to handle the new workforce differently today because they were not the latchkey, figure it out kids. They need more mentoring, more guidance, and then also more support. And I will say that today's youngest workforce, this Gen Z, which is that right now under age 28, Gen Z is bringing their whole self to work, which a lot of people in the past were told, you leave your personal drama at home and you don't bring that crap here. Don't tell me about your personal struggles and troubles and things like that. In fact, I worked with a guy years ago who he got divorced, and we all know how long that process can take. He got divorced. None of us at work knew he was getting divorced until it was completely done because he was always taught you leave your personal stuff at the door, and we felt so bad because it's like, oh my gosh, dude, we would have given you a little more grace at work. We would have not asked you on Monday morning, how's your wife and kids this weekend? We would have been able to empathize with you a little bit, but because he was so black and white, like personal personal, professional. You don't talk about that stuff at work. We, as his team and even his boss, were not able to support him in a way that would have benefited him during that difficult time. So today, Gen Z is the opposite. Gen Z is like, you are hiring the whole 24/7 person. I am bringing my mental health struggles with me. I am bringing my fur babies with me. Everything I've got, you're going to know about. Even, unfortunately today, even the politics, right? And they want to bring their values in to talk about their personal values and things like that, which makes it difficult in the workplace today.
Ooh.
But so we really need to, the two things I mentioned were right, guidance and support. So the guidance is the better training, better mentoring, checking in, even about advancement opportunities and later mentoring as well. And the other side is support, which is being ready to ask your team, how are you? How are things? Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do to support you? And then shut your mouth and be prepared for whatever is gonna come at you, because it's gonna lower their productivity if they're distracted and thinking about other things going on at home, for sure.
Yeah, like, so I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I did actually write down, leave your emotions at the door. We have work to do as a high level leader in manufacturing, because I didn't know better. I just didn't have the skill. I was scared to ask, how are you feeling? Because I didn't know how to handle that. And like, man, we just want to make some parts, we're manufacturing. But the bottom line is that we're people. We're people, and we're constantly involved with people. And I should have just said, Trevor doesn't have the skill to unpack how you're doing today, so we're just going to move on and the day won't be as good. It's a great example of like, if we don't know, we can't give you grace. Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm resonating with the most, and I think our listeners will be thinking about this, is this onboarding, and maybe thinking about that a whole lot differently. I like the 30 hours. You caught me on the word mentoring, because I never really thought about that, because, you have a boss, you get hired, you check in with your boss, you kind of see how it's going. But we know that when people check in with us and they say like, how was your first couple of days? Like, how are you feeling about this? Like getting into like, do you feel welcomed here? And what are you missing? Man, like to have those conversations. So what kind of model are you using around this mentoring and that early stage, Cara?
Yeah, so definitely creating an onboarding checklist, or this on-ramp checklist.
On-ramp. I like that better.
Yeah. And we encourage you to think about, what do people need day one, week one, month one, and quarter one? Because that on-ramp and onboarding process does take months to get folks truly acclimated and reinforce that confidence and competence in the role and on their team. So that's one piece of it, thinking about it that way. And then another is to make sure that you're providing predictable access as a manager for your people. A lot of managers, especially when they go out on the floor, they do what I call the drive-by check-in. Hey, Trevor, how's your day going? Everything good? Everybody treating you well?
That was me.
And then they're like, I got a meeting I'm going to, but hey, holler if you need me. Yeah. And so that drive-by check-in can actually do more harm than good, because that person feels like you never have time for them. You are too busy to help them. They don't want to bother you with their questions. And so definitely giving new hires, but also I think everybody, predictable access with some one-on-ones, or telling them, I'm going to come down to the floor this afternoon. Let me know if you've got anything you want to talk about while I'm with you. Give folks a heads up, because they can't think off the top of their head. If you say, hey, I've got 5 minutes, do you need anything? Like, oh, I didn't know you were coming now. I had an issue yesterday. Now I can't remember what it was. Right?
I love it.
That type of thing. So you really want to provide predictable access to folks. Not that it has to be consistent, like it's every Tuesday afternoon. It can be, but even just telling your folks, hey, I'm going to come talk with you this afternoon or on Friday, whatever, give them a heads up and let them gather their thoughts so they can really be prepared to talk to you about whatever they want to talk to you about.
Predictable access. What a great phrase. Mm-hmm. We know that our brains are kind of hardwired. Like if we know what's coming, we can prepare for it. That's great advice, Cara. If we've all been in the situation, or not, I can't say all, but probably most of us, where somebody's left the company and we were surprised. And it's like, okay, so we're surprised that they left. So then who was their mentor, right? Like who was the person checking in on them? And then were they equipped
Yeah.
to ask the deeper questions so that, we can have a conversation up front and it's not just, hey, where's Johnny? He's not coming back from break. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, nobody's really talked to him in the last couple of weeks. I don't know why he left.
Yeah. And Trevor, this is exactly why you and I are in business, because managers need training.
Yeah.
They will get promoted or hired into these positions without having the natural tools. And even if it is someone who's a pretty good natural leader, I continue to learn. I continue to sit in classes and watch webinars and listen to podcasts. And I continue to learn how to be a great leader for my team. Just like I'm going to keep learning about AI and, the finance world, I'm always going to keep growing and learning in different areas. So I think it is really important that managers have a training plan and that we identify some of these skills, such as emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
greater self-awareness. I mean, those classes I know are super popular at your company and mine, because organizational leaders are finally realizing, wow, my managers are telling me they feel like therapists for their staff and they're not equipped for that. They're not prepared. They're not even comfortable, let alone have the right language and the right responses for it. So we better get them some training, because guess what? The workforce is not gonna leave their emotions at the door. It ain't gonna happen.
No.
And if a boss doesn't listen to them and does not have the appropriate response in that situation, they're going to quit and go find a boss who truly supports them, with the air quotes, like, because support is a subjective term. Everyone wants support in a different way. Some people want support by tell me what to do and leave me alone and let me do my job. Other people want support of thank you, great job, and praise and recognition. And other people want support of be there if they need you, be accessible. That's another type of support, is that accessibility to them when there's a problem or question. So we just need to make sure that we are equipping managers with the skills and tools, communication, empathy, even. I know some people think that's fluffy. It is no longer fluffy. It is a critical skill that your managers and even frontline supervisors need, because we're seeing some of our management who we used to do management for department directors, and then we went to middle management, and now we're even going down to the frontline supervisors, because as we know, culture is not posters on a wall.
No.
Culture is what walks down the hall, as we say. So you got to teach those frontline shift supervisors also what is expected from a leader, because they're the real culture of how they're treating people every day.
Yeah, I'll say two things to that, which is, one is when I started developing that skill, so I could race that off my board. I became a better person at home, like to my parents, to my family, because then I was able to have, especially having adult children, to be able to just have real conversations and find out like what's beneath it, like what's the real problem here. And I just didn't have that skill. So what I love is that when we're working with these leaders, they become just better people, because when you get better at work, you get better at home. And I wouldn't be where I am today, if I didn't get those skills and I didn't work on that. And that just makes me feel like the purpose of all this, right? Like it's bigger than that. Yes, we want to retain our people. We need to have these conversations.
And Trevor, before you go to your second point, there is a business benefit to what you just said, because people coming out of our classes say the same thing, especially with our generational training. Like, now I understand my kids better and my spouse better, and my point is, if they have a better home life and better relationships in their personal life, they're going to show up better at work. They're going to sleep better. They'll have less stress, less distractions. So that might seem like nice to have some extra bonus skills at home, but no, that's a business benefit as well, you guys. For sure.
It is. And I think it's just a great kind of wrap up here in the fact of it can make a difference on your recruitment. And that's the problem that we see on the surface, but then there's so much going on at home. And it just seems like you said, like even talks of politics and then values, and it just gets so heavy. And it's like, if we can, if you can name it, you can tame it. If we can just kind of get out in the open, and then, you're driving to work, and I don't want this listeners to leave now thinking, oh my gosh, I got to do all this, but it's just kind of one step at a time. It's just one conversation at a time. And the more you kind of do it, the better you get at it. And it's there anyways. And we don't want you to think that, hey, we're going to have to be warm and fluffy now, and we're not going to be able to get all this work done. You're going to get more work done because your brain's not spending that energy thinking about those other areas, because you've kind of unpacked that now with whoever you're talking to, and we'll be more productive. And you see that, and I see that. So if I'm going into the plant right now, and they said, hey, we're going to redo our onboarding program. I just listened to this podcast with Cara, and they said, well, what's her main message? What do you leave with? What do you want the listeners to think about when they think about Cara Silletto and your message at Magnet Culture?
Yeah, I just think it's so important that we know our people and we stop making assumptions based on the way we've always done it. Because the new workforce is not prioritizing the same things that you prioritize. They don't value the same things. They do not value the stability as much as they value mobility, for example. And I think talking to our people, even just what kind of gift card do they want? If you're going to praise them, asking them that question instead of assuming everybody wants the same kind of gift card or the kind of gift card you like, right? I don't drink coffee. So when people give me a Starbucks gift card, I re-gift it, to be honest. So, you've got to
not too personal.
People. Exactly. Yeah, I think that's just so important, is listen more and ask a lot more questions. Be very curious in your role as a leader, and you will be shocked how much you learn and can grow yourself just by listening and really understanding others better.
I'm living proof. People can change. It's just that attitude of curiosity. Cara, thanks so much for coming on. How do our listeners follow you and get some of this more tips from you?
Sure. So magnetculture.com is our website. I'm the only Cara Silletto on LinkedIn, so I'm easy to find. And you can find free downloadable tips for retention at magnetvault.com. That's our hidden website of secret resources. So bonus.
Well, thanks for sharing with us. You've been an inspiration for me. You're a wonderful speaker. You bring such a high level of professionalism, and you set the bar of what good looks like. And I appreciate the path that you've created here for myself and others to we have important messages, but we got to be more skilled in how we deliver them. So you model what the good look like. So thanks for everything you do, and thanks for coming on the show today. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Hey folks, appreciate you taking the time to join us today. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Haven't subscribed yet? Do it now. Remember, if you want results, the key is increasing your awareness of how you show up.